I'm Yunggiema, photojournalist working in Asia for over 15 years. During this time I've had the opportunity to shoot the most exciting projects from architecture through culture to art and heritage. Through Photojournalist Diaries, I would like to invite you along this journey, so if you feel like it, please hit the subscribe button. Exactly 8 years ago, I was a member of a team traveling to China's Yunnan province to record Both Miklos' China album, The Musical Odyssey. I was there to document the proceedings and the trip itself with videos and photography. The album was recorded on the fly while traveling and finding musicians along the way, and this is my personal account of it. As I mentioned in the previous episode, just so it makes sense who Miklos is, Both Miklos is a composer, a folklorist, originally known as the lead singer and a brilliant guitarist of the band Napra, but now mostly he's known for his folklorist work from Africa, India, China, and especially the Ukraine. The friendship with Miklos wasn't only important to me on a personal level, but it also entirely changed my musical scope and interest for the future. And I think this very occasion when I filmed The Musical Odyssey was single-handedly responsible for it. It opened me up to totally different territories of music. It's really hard to specify this. Why? I guess because I was this 90s kid with a very heavy influence from pop and rock music, and I always loved music that was strongly connected to an image of a performer. Living in Shanghai already opened me up to jazz music, but here I was stepping into something entirely different, and folk and world music, which made me appreciate music solely for what it is. So we set out on this trip to the southwestern province of China, Yunnan. Now this region is as close as you can get to traditional China and furthest away from the China that lives in everyone's mind with pollution and crowded, filthy cities. Actually, every time I hear people complaining about China without actually being there, I always remind myself of Yunnan, and it quickly becomes apparent that they really don't know what they're talking about and they miss out on so much. This part of China, especially Yunnan, has this fresh, cool mountain air, incredible scenery, nice people and places dipped in traditions. It's just an incredible magical location with the Himalayas as the backdrop. In the team there was the famous Hungarian folk musician Grilus Daniel, who was acting as a producer here.
Nagyon messzire is vissza lehet menni. Hát én ugye a Kaláka együttes vezetője vagyok, idén már 44 éve. Aztán amikor a rendszerváltáskor kicsit megváltozott a világ, akkor kiadó is lettem, és megint 10 év múlva elkezdtem egy hangzó Helikon sorozatot a Helikon kiadóval közösen, ahol magyar költészetet publikáltunk. Hát ebben a sorozatban Both Mikit kértem föl, hogy ő legyen a Radnóti kötet szerzője és előadója, és azt se tudtam, hogy neki milyen előtanulmányai voltak, és a 20-as évek zenéjében mennyire beleásta magát.
His son was there also, Shamu, who is also a composer. Then the Hungarian recording engineer Hiroshi Barnabás, who is actually very famous. He was responsible for producing albums for famous Hungarian bands like Kispál és a Boars, Tangcsapda, and many others. There were other friends, and then of course Miklos and me. I flew in from Shanghai I think it was the beginning of March or something like that, and they were already arranging musicians for the recordings, and so we started to work immediately. It wasn't a conscious decision to record the short film for Musical Odyssey. It just came out of the habit of me documenting everything around me. So when the recording sessions came up, it made sense to do it properly and shoot it all. The recording of the album went in an incredibly spontaneous way. I've never seen anything like it, and I really admired his balls to just, you know, turning up with a producer and you don't even have your musicians ready. You just go around and look for them right there. But that made this record so brave and adventurous. It was all very circumstantial, whether they turned up or were they up to record, were they in the mood. There was always this excitement in the air. One of these was the legendary Wang Shao, Master Wang Shao as Mickey called him. He was a Tibetan musician. He played the dombra instrument and was singing also. Wang Shao was small and he didn't speak much English, but when he played it was really like the mountains parting. It came through from his performance and how he was playing, where he was coming from. It was this raw, natural energy. He was a friend of Miklos already and musician partner, but they couldn't speak much, so they communicated over music. Here's what I said to one of the Hungarian porters later on about this.
Én elkezdtem dokumentálni a munkáját, mert tényleg olyan izgalmas, meg érdekes szituációban voltunk, hogy ezt tényleg fel kellett venni. A Wang Shao-nak Mikinek már volt egy találkozása vele, szorosra fűződött a barátságok nekik is, ami tényleg egyébként annyit, hogy nagyon furcsa barátságok van, mert tényleg napokig mászkáltak, és gyakorlatilag Wang Shao 2 angol szót tudott, az, hogy oké, meg yes, még az, hogy no. És akkor ilyen nagyon vicces volt, hogy egész nap együtt voltak, de nem beszéltek, csak így zeneileg értették meg egymást.
Then there were the excellent He brothers, who Miklos found in Yunnan, I think a year before that. And of course then there was Yunggiema. And you must remember that this was just before she got to be famous, before she became like an international sensation through Chinese Idol. So when we did this project together, she was relatively unknown. I remember him speaking so highly of her, and I also remember him mentioning that she had a voice like a witch. And when you hear that, you say, okay, whatever. I believe Miklos, but I was like, okay, whatever. But when you heard Yunggiema singing, similar to Wang Shao, it transferred you into another world. What was really magical and literally breathtaking about the performance was that Miklos, Yunggiema and the musicians didn't discuss anything in beforehand. They just sat down and started to play, and the fact that with one single go the track went on the album, it was just something astonishing. I really couldn't believe it. They didn't discuss how long it will last, where will it go, and when will it end. and it just ended when it was time. It was just an electrifying performance. What was even more unbelievable about the performance was how Yunggiema's voice just built up and up and up. And this was the moment for me when I realized what Miklos meant about a year before that Yunggiema indeed sounded like a witch. Actually had one nerve-wracking incident during the performance, which no one else saw but me. Hidashi was preoccupied with the sound. Miklos and the band was facing me. They didn't see what was going on behind their backs, and their eyes were closed as they were playing. And I looked behind them, and on the top of the stairs I saw these two dogs kind of deciding whether they should come down or not. It was a small one and a bigger Labrador. And they kind of hesitated there without anyone being there. I knew if decided to run down, they will ruin the one take, they will ruin everything over the wires, over the musicians. It would have been really a disaster. And I couldn't do anything. I just had to watch them deciding. And I looked up and I saw them. They were looking around, looking down. I think if I remember, I haven't watched the video for so long, but if I remember, one of them even came down like halfway and kind of sniffed around. And in the end, they decided to go back. And I was so relieved. I told Miklos about the near incident afterwards, but he was still so high on the performance, and he was so relieved that he didn't really hear it. I don't think he realized the significance of what could have happened. After Yunggiema's performance, the album was kind of done. They finished all the recordings and it was ready to be mastered. I had all the video recordings. To be honest, nobody had time to think about this, really. We were talking about other things, I was filming, but so when I eventually got back to Shanghai, I immediately started to work on the short film to the Musical Odyssey album. Afterwards, when he came to Shanghai, I showed him the short film that I started, and he was very happy about it, and he supported it, and he said, let's do this, and we were very happy that actually we have this recording. It's extremely powerful because of the music. Afterlife of the Chinese album was also significant. Not so much in Shanghai. When he was in Shanghai, there's only one thing that happened. That Yunggiema came to play at the Mao Live House about 2 months after Lijiang. Why this whole thing was so important to me and why Miklós' friendship was so important was because by 2011, the 5th year that I was living in China, I was so disconnected from my own country with the Hungarian culture, and generally just with Hungary. I didn't know anything about it anymore. I didn't watch the news. I didn't know what was going on in my own country, and not even vaguely. I just didn't care. I never looked back, especially because he's a folk musician. He brought back the roots of Hungary. We hung out for a couple of years, I mean, on and off, traveling, and he was always singing these Hungarian songs, and I don't know how it is now, but he has this habit of singing all the time, and that's what he did in Shanghai and Chongqing and Lijiang, and he was all the time singing when we were just walking around taking photographs. And without me noticing it, he kind of killed that disconnection with my own country, and I started to open up a little bit about it. He kind of leaked Hungary back into my life. He leaked Hungarian culture back into my life. And on another level, little bits of mosaic started to come together. For example, I got to know the Hungarian team who came to Yunnan with Grillus, Daniel and Shamu and Hidashi Barnabas and a few other people. and then my photos were part of the artwork for the album. On top of that, I made the short movie about the musical Odyssey, so press started to use it and Miklos started to use it. Everything came together when he brought all the musicians from China to the prestigious Budapest venue called Műpa, and everybody was on stage, and it was a huge success. Just incredible to see how it all came together. All the musicians who we got to know in Yunnan were suddenly on the stage of this prestigious Budapest venue.
Köszönjük szépen, hogy itt voltak. Lukács Miki cimbalom, Szokolai Dongó Balázs, Furja, Dés András dobogdán, Novák Csaba basszusgitár, nagy bőgő. Van Xiao mester, főtestvérek Ai Pui és csodálatos Yunggiema. Köszönjük szépen!